Hey everyone, this is a short video about the major realignment that we are seeing in Western politics. Before the turn of the century, politics for most people in the West looked like this: a clear binary divide between left and right, the main disagreement being over economics. In the mid-2010s, it became apparent that the main political divide was now between the somewheres, rural, blue-collar, rooted in one place, and the anywheres, urban, mobile, university-educated professionals. This was outlined by David Goodhart in his book The Road to Somewhere. The mid-2010s also saw a sharp rise in identity politics, with more and more people pushing back on established ideas and societal norms and basing their identity on their political tribe rather than on their religion, town, or area of employment. Characteristics such as race, gender, and sexuality have come to be more significant to people who are more willing to see themselves as victims of an oppressive system. Public services and national institutions such as the police, armed forces, health service, schools, and the church have been blamed for discrimination. This shift away from economic issues and a class-based analysis of society has been hugely detrimental to social democratic parties, which have historically relied on class solidarity to achieve power. Identity politics, by focusing highly on individual experiences and personal sense of self, has torn up the social fabric and sense of national identity, which has formed the basis of the welfare state and public institutions. In the wake of these societal changes, four distinct political tribes have emerged, each with their own vision for the future. The main difference between now and 10 years ago is that the narrow constraints of neoliberal globalization have been broken by a weakened EU and an increasingly protectionist USA. This has opened the door to new ideas about the right future for Western democracies. The main divide, however, is between those who believe in national sovereignty versus those who believe in globalization. One ideology to have sprung up in response to our rapidly changing world is national populism. National populists are concerned that globalization and open borders have eroded workers' bargaining power and widened inequality. Economically, they are collectivist, believing strongly in socialized ownership of key sectors such as health, finance, transport, etc. They believe that the rich should pay a larger share of tax, they want more workers' rights, and they are also opposed to free trade, instead seeing trade protection as essential to protecting jobs in strategic national industries. On socio-cultural issues, national populists are generally more conservative and support having a strong military and police force. Overall, they are quite patriotic and have a strong sense of duty and social responsibility. In Europe, we've seen parties such as the National Rally run on a national populist ticket in France. In the USA, there is also a protectionist wing of the Democratic Party, led by Bernie Sanders, which would fit into this political grouping as well. Interestingly, Joe Biden has been appealing to national populist voters by demanding more funding for police and maintaining the relatively high steel tariffs Trump introduced on the grounds of national security. He's also pursued a dirigiste industrial policy, for example by banning microchip exports to China to increase America's productive capacity and self-sufficiency. It must be stressed, however, that Biden was not always supposedly as pro-worker as he is today. In 1977 to 1978, during Union's big push for labor law reform, he vacillated for months and sabotaged the proposal with public criticism. He also authored the 2005 bankruptcy bill, which is very punishing to working class Americans, essentially rewarding creditors and punishing debtors. He also voted for NAFTA, which damaged the working class in America, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which American trade unions were strongly opposed to. So his support for workers may well be opportunistic. Nevertheless, this goes to show how patriotic blue-collar workers represent the new centre ground in Western politics. The group to have benefited the most from this political realignment are the National Conservatives, who have won a great many victories across the Western world. National Conservative leaders include Viktor Orban, Donald Trump, Jair Bolsonaro, and Nigel Farage. National Conservatives, much like National Populists, believe strongly in national sovereignty, strong borders, strong military and police, and strong trade protections. What differentiates this group from the National Populists is the National Conservatives believe strongly in cutting taxes, and they are more inclined to cut welfare programs, especially for immigrants. Additionally, National Conservatives are very hostile to foreign aid and international cooperation to reduce carbon emissions. In their view, their nation should not be forced to make sacrifices for the benefit of more polluting nations like China and India. Overall, they see environmentalism as anti-capitalism in disguise and are opposed to green levies and regulation. The most powerful and the least popular tribe is one that established itself in most of the world's institutions decades before the realignment we are seeing now. Classical liberals were the people who thought up the idea of a single European currency and a European single market and customs area. They are dominant within the World Bank, and the IMF have been promoting neoliberal capitalism and free trade since monetarism became the economic consensus in the 1970s. Classical liberals are dominant in Europe. They believe strongly in balanced budgets and are opposed to labour unions. Classical liberals are often very work-focused, highly skilled and educated people who have achieved a sense of identity through their work. They are not very attached to the place where they grew up, and they are not particularly patriotic. Social liberals are a group of people who, like the classical liberals, are not particularly attached to one place and are not very patriotic. They are extremely cosmopolitan and care strongly about diversity, inclusion, and multiculturalism. Social liberals are very environmentalist and are skeptical of what they see as to be a destructive capitalist model of endless growth. They are basically the opposite of national conservatives in almost every way. Inequality is of a big concern for social liberals, so most of them support a generous welfare state. Social liberals also have very high moral standards and are quick to denounce and shame those who dissent from their ideology in any way. Established social norms are seen by social liberals to be oppressive, and this message has alienated a lot of people who do not think about the world in these terms. Interestingly, both the Democratic Party in America and the Labour Party in the UK have socially liberal wings which are declining in power now due to their ideas being so offensive to voters, so I don't see them gaining power in any major Western countries outside of Canada, which seems to be a weird outlier with Trudeau. Anyway, what do you guys think? Which tribe do you fit into? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Bye for now.